Tony Ferguson is currently riding a 6-fight losing streak, and when he enters the octagon in a few days at UFC 296, he may find that losing streak going from 6 to 7 because Paddy Pimblett is coming to hunt the lightweight division's aging devil. Can Ferguson hunt the hunter and turn his fortunes around against the self-proclaimed cash cow of the UFC? Let's dive deeper into the highly anticipated lightweight clash at UFC 296 to find out. Tony Ferguson was an absolute monster in his heyday. He was El Cucoy, or the devil, who would leave his opponents bruised, bloodied up, and broken by the end of the fight. At one point in his career, he was riding a 12-fight winning streak and was regarded as the greatest lightweight of all time by many in the MMA community. It was him and Khabib and then the rest of the lightweight division, but then he ran into the man, the myth, the legend, the human highlight, Justin Gaethje at UFC 249, where he was beat for the first time in a very long time. Ferguson had no response to Gaethje's refined counter-striking, and he lost by TKO in the later rounds of the fight after taking a ton of punishment. Since then, he has been on a downward slope. He got dominated by Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush. He got sent straight to the Shadow Realm by a brutal front kick, courtesy of former Bellator lightweight champion Michael Chandler, and he was submitted by certified BMFs Nate Diaz and Bobby Green. Ferguson hasn't won a fight since 2019, and he is currently in a terrible spot in the UFC. If he loses a 7th consecutive time, that may be the end of him, because if he doesn't retire voluntarily, Dana White will send him packing most likely. The UFC president has already said that the decision to retire is totally up to Ferguson, but if he loses come fight night, it's quote unquote a wrap for him. The message is loud and clear. It's do or die. It's all or nothing. The future doesn't look good for Ferguson unless, of course, he pulls a rabbit out of his hat and absolutely smashes the UFC's new cash cow Paddy Pimblett, who hasn't fought for a while. Pimblett has fought 4 times in the UFC. He had a shaky but sensational start in his first fight, a first-round submission win against Rodrigo Vargas, a second-round submission against Jordan Levitt, and a controversial victory against Jared Gooden in his most recent fight. Overall, he is in decent form, but he's also returning from an injury which could play a part in his next fight. The big question is, can Tony Ferguson beat Paddy Pimblett? Anyone can beat anyone any given day in mixed martial arts, and even though he's in the twilight of his career, it is stupid to rule out Ferguson just yet, especially when the Brit is a slightly favorable matchup for him. But how so? Let's break down their strengths and weaknesses. Tony Ferguson is one of the most unorthodox and violent strikers in UFC history. He loves to outstrike his opponents with pressure and volume. He lands close to 5 significant strikes per minute on average, which is extremely impressive. Yet, he has weaknesses that Paddy the Baddy can exploit, especially now that he is slower and sloppier. Ferguson has always been vulnerable in the opening frame, but once he gets going, he's a nightmare to cope with. He's got vicious hands, he's got some good kicks, he's got razor sharp elbows. He's still got most of the tools that he utilized in his heyday. It's just that he is slightly slower, and it seems like his chin is a little bit less tough. The good thing is that Pimblett is not a world-class striker by any means. He is aggressive, he's vicious, but he's not technical, and he tends to turn his stand-up fights into brawls, which leaves his chin vulnerable to counter shots. When he sticks to boxing, he often ends up too close. If Paddy masters range control, he'll become a tough fighter to beat. The Baddie has been cracked in the past, and if he rushes forward with reckless abandon against Ferguson, he may end up on the floor with the referee leaning over his body. However, if he connects one clean shot on Ferguson's chin, there's a high possibility that the former UFC lightweight champion may teleport to the land of ghosts and fairies. His kicks are solid, and using them to find his range could make a difference. Ferguson has been struggling against fighters who can counterattack and have fast hands. We saw him have trouble against Justin Gaethje, Nate Diaz, and Bobby Green. Sure, the Baddie is nowhere near Gaethje, Diaz, or even Green in the striking department, but he does have fast hands and a very solid reach, which can cause trouble for Ferguson come fight night. But I'll give Pimblett a slight edge in the striking department since he is faster and more powerful. Moreover, he is durable and he can take a shot. Ferguson's chin, on the other hand, he has been cracked a bit too many times. Wrestling is also a major worry for Ferguson. Pimblett is an exceptional wrestler and grappler. He may not be as good as like Islam or Oliveira, but he's still good enough to take Ferguson down and submit him. Paddy the Baddie's control on the mat is a less lesson for beginners. It's impressive how he focuses on controlling positions before going straight for submissions or inflicting damage while on top. Tony Ferguson is very tricky off his back. He is one of those guys who feels comfortable in that position, but he hasn't been able to showcase his 10th planet jiu-jitsu skills as of late. The only time he had success off his back is when he fought Michael Chandler and busted him up with elbows from the bottom. Other than that, Ferguson hasn't been sharp enough to defend or execute submissions. His body isn't reacting as quickly as his brain wants to, which is understandable. I mean, he is 39 years old. Ferguson is way past his prime, whereas Paddy the Baddy is only getting started. He is younger, he is hungrier, and he has a lot to prove inside that octagon. Another factor that plays into Pimblett's advantage is that he has a proper training camp and a team to help him prepare for fights. Ferguson is having serious trust issues with his teammates, and he has switched things up in the past, which means the stability isn't there. Sure, Ferguson has the experience and the cardio to go 3 rounds, but he is a shell of his former self who maybe should have retired right now. He's also training with David Goggins. I don't even know if he has a proper team, so who knows how that's gonna go. He won't get another title shot anytime soon. He's hitting 40 next year. To me, it's like, why keep fighting and risk more damage? But Tony, he's a different breed. But you know, look at BJ Penn. He wrecked his record and had to stop fighting. Ferguson, he may need to have a serious talk about whether he wins or loses against Paddy the Baddy. It'd be cool if he wins and retires like Robbie Lawler did. Even if he loses, there's no shame in riding into the sunset. Win or lose, he'll always be remembered as one of the most entertaining and beloved fighters ever. I don't know if he stands a chance against Paddy the Baddy or any other rising star. I just don't know if he has it in him anymore, and maybe he should have left the UFC after losing to Nate Diaz. I understand why he wants to continue fighting, but he is doing himself more harm than good by refusing to retire. He's had an illustrious career, and now it's time for him to sit back and enjoy some quality time in his retirement. I'd be very surprised if he pulls this one off. Like I said, anything can happen in fighting. What do you guys think? I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. Stay tuned for the latest in the MMA world. Subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next video.